Hello everyone, it's me, Andy, again, and we're back here to talk some more about Dante's Inferno. And today is finally the day you will get to see the actual torments in hell. Because previous to now, we've only covered areas that are sort of not in hell proper. I mean, Circle 1 kind of is, but they don't really have any actual suffering. So here is actual transgressors who are thrown into hell. Although it's, by Dante, this is considered the least of transgressions. Because the sin of lust is, we as human beings are naturally drawn towards sex. But when it gets disordered is what the problem is. So, when Dante enters the second circle of hell, the first thing he notices is that it's dark. He describes the place as being a place where all light went silent. And in that darkness, there are really strong winds blowing. In fact, it's so strong that it's blowing people. And they're sort of flying around in this huge circle. Except they're not really flying. They're more like falling with style. The wind is blowing them all over the place. And the reason that they're being blown is because since they decided to give in to their passions in life of lust, instead of using self-control, that they let themselves go and run wild in wanton pleasure. And therefore, that's what they wanted. And so God says, here you go. You got what you wanted. You can have this freedom, so to speak, for all eternity. And so, they never wanted a rest from their sexual desires. So now they never will have any rest, ever again. Can never stop. They're just blown around and around and around and around forever and ever. Now, when Dante sees them, he's moved with pity for them, and he asks Virgil, and Virgil says that if you want, you can call out to some of the people, and they'll be able to come by the love that moves them. Now, of course, love is really in quotes, because lust is not the same as love, as I'll explain and illustrate. So, sure enough, two ghostly figures come floating down towards Dante and start speaking to him. And the woman's name is Francesca, and the man's name is Paolo. And here is what Francesca has to say. O generous and gracious loving man, who through this black air comes visiting us who stained the world with blood, if the King of the universe were our friend, we would be praying to him for your peace, because you pity our perverse fate. Okay, let me stop there. Okay, notice she says, if the King of the universe were our friend, we would be praying to him for your peace. So basically she's saying, God is being so mean and cruel to us. We didn't do anything to deserve being here. God is not our friend, but we want him to be our friend, but he's not listening. So really, Francesca here has a perverted sense of what love is, and so she doesn't understand how the love of God works, that if you want to be with God, you have to accept him and go with him. If you keep his commandments, then that's when you will be happy. But if you disobey his commandments, like Francesca has, then you'll get the opposite, unhappiness. She also says that because you pity our perverse fate. So basically it's all about her. So Dante, in reality, he's going into hell on a journey to help save his soul. But Francesca is making it out that he's come here to see her, which is not the purpose. Whatever you may wish to say and hear, we shall hear and say you, as long as the wind keeps still, as it is doing now. The land where I was born lies on the coast where the river Po, descending to the sea, makes peace with all its trailing streams. Love, which quickly lodges in a tender heart, aroused this man's desire for that fair form so torn from me. The manner grieves me still. Love that never lets the loved one not love too, inflamed me with such pleasure in this man, that as you see it, it has not left me yet. And love it was that brought us to one death. The abode of Cain awaits the man who killed us. Okay. So this is a really sad story of Francesca and Paolo, based on reality. So, Francesca was married to a mean and ugly man, basically, who was abusive in every way. And Francesca secretly loved the man's brother, who was a nice and gentle man. And so, one day, she and Paolo, who was like the nice man, I guess you could say in quotes, they were reading Arthurian legend. The legend of King Arthur is, keep in mind, it's a Catholic story. It's supposed to have morality, and they get to the part where Sir Lancelot falls in lust with Queen Guinevere. And as we know, at the end of the story, what happens because of that event of lust is that King Arthur's kingdom completely crumbles because of that incident. But Francesca and Paolo, they're not actually looking for the real reason of the story, the real purpose of it. They're just looking at it as an excuse to fall into lust. And so they end up committing adultery, and then the husband comes in and kills both of them. And Francesca's remark about the place where Cain dwells is a reference to, later on we'll see in hell, the lowest part of hell is where the traitors go. And so that husband is going to get, he's not going to get off the hook. He's going to get every bit that he deserves. He's going to go to the lowest portion of hell, which is the worst part of hell possible. But still, just because he is an evil man does not let Francesca off the hook. Because even though it's sad that she was ill-treated, it does not justify the act of adultery. And probably there was still the process of granting annulments. In the Catholic Church, the process of granting annulments is a process that involves finding if the marriage was valid or not. And a lot of times, a marriage is not really a marriage if it was entered into like Francesca was, where she was kind of tricked into it. Sort of like the story of when Jacob had to marry Leah because he was tricked into marrying Leah. Now, the Catholic Church would recognize that that would not be a valid marriage, and then it could be considered null and void. But still, even if Francesca was in that situation, it still would not justify her actions, because from her mind, she knew it was wrong, and so the sin lies on her. And so then after Dante hears Francesca's and Paolo's story, Paolo makes just a moan. And this is another issue that has to be addressed, because in our culture, feminism is trying to water down masculinity. And this is exactly what's happening with Paolo right now. He's a total wimp. He, our first parent, Adam, in the Garden of Eden, decided not to reject the snake. Because Paolo could have been like, Francesca, we shouldn't be doing this. This is wrong. But instead, he was a total wimp. And it shows in the afterlife too, because he's letting Francesca do all the talking. the man should be the one to lead. And I know many of you in the culture would disagree with this, but it's true, to be frank. Now, a lot of you may be asking, so I don't really get the whole idea of lust. It's hard to, sometimes it's hard for people to see what the difference between love and lust is. Because when you're in the moment of being with someone of the opposite sex that you're attracted to, a lot of people immediately say, okay, I'm in love. But you really have to think through it carefully of what the difference is between love and lust. And the greatest example that I can think of is the Phantom of the Opera. And so I'm going to show you two different videos, one of lust and one of love, for you to compare. So first is the video of the music of the night.
Turn your face away from the garish light of day. Turn your thoughts away from cold, unfeeling light. Close your eyes and surrender to your darkest dreams. Purge your thoughts of the life you knew before. Open up your mind, let your fantasies unwind. Touch me, trust me, savor each sensation. Let the dream begin, let your darker side give in to the power of the music that I write. The power of the music of the night.
Okay, so the Phantom has such a haunting and beautiful melody, and it's winning over Christine's heart. But if you listen closely to what the Phantom is saying, you'll know that his, quote, love for her is not really love at all, because it's all really about him. He's saying, this is what you need to do to be with me. And he's saying, let your darker side give in, and all this dark stuff with a really beautiful melody. It's like, melody's like really grand, and it's like, darkness and lust is like the best thing ever, you know? It's like, it's really beautiful and attractive. You can hear the purr of the leopard that Dante saw in the dark wood. And then you compare it to the real love that comes from Raoul.
Let daylight dry your tears. I'm here with you, beside you, to guard you and to guide you. Let me be your shelter. Let me be your light. You're safe, no one will find you. Your fears are far behind you.
Is freedom, a world with no more night, and you always beside me, to hold me and to hide me.
Then say you'll share with me one love, one lifetime. Let me lead you from your solitude.
So in this song, Raoul doesn't care about himself. He just wants Christine's freedom, whereas the Phantom wants her to be a prisoner for himself. Raoul wants Christine to be free and happy, and he wants to protect her. And notice also in the song that Christine is actually singing back, whereas in the Phantom song, he's the only one that's singing. So it's one-sided. So, if you're perhaps maybe in a situation where you're perhaps sleeping with a boyfriend or girlfriend, or any other kind of sexual sin, I invite you to take a good look at it and read up on why lust is a bad thing. And sure that this will be a very liberating thing, because, I mean, I struggle with sexual temptations myself, and it's a thing that everyone falls into, but we can't let it drag us to hell. Lust really can get you to hell. It's one of the 7 deadly sins. It may be the least deadly of all of them, but that doesn't mean that it's still not deadly enough to get you to hell. And the second circle of hell Dante portrays as being a really large number of people, because most people that go to hell would have the sin of lust at the very least, most likely in addition to other sins. But as you'll see in the Purgatorio, when the lustful give up their sin in favor of true love, which is actually really passionate, like Jesus' death on the cross was real love. He sacrificed himself for us. That is the greatest love. And that is the love that we all need to emulate. And it doesn't have to be like actual physical death, but just, small sacrifices for ones you love, especially with romantic love. A man should be willing to die for his wife. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed this video, and hope to see you next time. So stay away from lust, and whatever you do, stay out of hell, okay? Goodbye. One last thing I should add is that this talk was almost exclusively based upon this CD series, this excellent CD series by Dr. Henry Russell, professor in Detroit. And he does a great job with all the Dante stuff, and I learned so much for him to make this, so I would give him a listen if you're up for it.